Shalom Alechem, and with the help of Elohim Chaim Chai Ha'olamim, the true and living God of all of life and all the worlds, I thank you for joining me here in this wonderful moment on this wonderful planet. And I have so much that I am so excited to share with you today. It's going to be Saint John Climacus, Saint John of the Ladder. It's going to be Saint Isaac the Syrian. It's going to be Kitab al-Hikam by Sheikh Ibn Attila al-Iskandari from about the 12th century. This is about the 7th century. This is about the 6th century. Then we've got Imam al-Ghazali, 12th century, 11th century. And then we've got Rumi, 12th, 11th, 12th century, all right around those dates. Very early on, very ancient. Oh, and then we have the Rambam as well. Also, very interestingly enough, like sometimes even in the same time, in the same place, but different entire religious traditions. And so, as exemplified by like a Rumi, al-Ghazali, and then the Rambam. And so we've got a lot of material to work through here, along with some wonderful quotes from the mountain of a man, King Solomon, who is arguably the wisest man who ever lived. And I will continue to bang this drum amidst the internet that King Solomon should be going viral. We should have King Solomon going viral. We often are all, well, we've been thrust into quite the ecosystem in terms of information on the internet through podcasts, social media. It's a bit of a fire hose, and it's exciting. It's exciting. We're all riding this wave, and certainly I think people are finding out it's good to follow certain people and to use social media to follow certain people and to stay up to date with things happening in the world. But it can, if it's just everything all the time, it can get a bit much. So we've got also some wild Siberian chaga, which is totally a secret. And so don't take it. Don't take it. Baruch atah ya Eloheinu melech haolam shekol neh bivaro. I'd highly recommend you take Rishi instead. One, because, I mean, arguably Rishi's better. I don't even think in terms of better and worse when it comes to these holy, sacred, very powerful, extremely medicinal, wonderful healing substances that God has blessed us with on this planet. And so I'd recommend Rishi for everyone, and cordyceps and lion's mane and turkey tail and things that can be cultivated with a lot more ease. Things that are extremely powerful and extremely rare. Those, like there's a whole list, so I'm not necessarily keen on popularizing certain natural healing substances because they're wild and take an extremely long time, like chaga, for instance, which everyone don't take. It's way too amazing and too powerful, and it's very good. But chaga takes about 20 years to grow into a fruiting body and is kind of parasitical in the sense that it grows off of a host tree. Truly, and it takes a very long time to fruit, and then from what I've been told, and it doesn't grow on all the trees, and so the number of trees that it's on is also pretty narrow given the total population of the certain species that they grow on in very cold climates. Happy New Year for everyone who follows the Gregorian calendar. For all the Jews, they have 4 New Years, and as the Gemara teaches, and as the Torah teaches. And so, by way of introduction, thank God for this day. Thank you for joining me. And if you are like me, then you will certainly see that God is good, and we have been given such a bright divine light of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding and guidance for humanity by so many incredible souls. And I believe that it is the sincere seeker's intention is to move past the husk and into the kernel, something that is a metaphor used in mysticism and is quoted by Rumi. He also evokes this metaphor, and that could be somewhat of a good place to start with the wonderful Rambam. He says here in his wonderful book, which I just posted for everyone about on Instagram over there at tanner.of.earth, with the help of God, The Guide to the Perplexed, a new translation by the Rambam. And it was published by Stanford University recently, like 2024 or 2023. Huge hardcover, absolutely incredible. The index with the references of the specific texts and scriptural passages, very good. And it's a very deep book. It's very beautiful. And I once had a strange interaction with someone out here in the middle of nowhere in the mountains, and we were working. And not a lot of Jewish people out here, and certainly not a lot of people familiar with the Rambam. But alas, I find myself a stranger in a strange place. And so, as we all do as true believers in this society, and we were talking, and he was like, well, what do you read? Or we were talking about reading. And I was like, well, I've been studying a lot recently, just a lot of ancient Judaism. And he was like, oh, like the Rambam. And I was like, yes, exactly like the Rambam. The Rambam is amazing. Nesher HaGadol was his moniker, or one of his nicknames, the Great Eagle. And, it is said of him, from Moses to Moses, there was none like Moses, because his name was Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, and he's just referred to as the Rambam in short, like the Ramak and like the Ramban and Rashbi. It's an acronym, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon. And so from Moses the prophet to Moses ben Maimon, there was none like Moses. And so he's a towering figure. He was actually, even in the Muslim world, he wrote in Judeo-Arabic, and he refers to God throughout his entire works, because he wrote in Arabic, as Allah. And the commentators in this Stanford University edition, which is just such, again, a big deal, they speak about how the word Allah, a lot of people are afraid of it because of a great amount of, we could call it ignorance, or we could call it confusion, but it just means God, and it is referring to God. And so it can also refer to false gods, in the sense of La ilaha illallah, like in the famous phrase, there is no God but God. There is no other God, so to speak, but God. Kind of like Elohim, and it's a complete cognate in the Arabic form to the Hebrew Elohim, the root of Elohim, or the little bit of elongated El, the divine El, this sacred name of God, and that we see in the Torah as well as in the Quran. And it's a word, and it was used even throughout Canaanite culture, which is interesting to note. It means God. It means God. It also means in the Arabic I love how one of the etymologies, they're like, well, what does this word mean? Because in the Hebrew it means power. Directly, it just means power. Like Laban says, I have power in my hand to do either good or bad to you, which is a whole separate subject of like, what is Laban? What did Laban just say? And then we have Jacob and everything that he does, and I thoroughly invite you to read that. But it's, so in the Hebrew you have the etymological derivative or the root coming from perhaps power, a divine power. And to think of the world in terms of a power is very ancient and well attested to throughout the planet in multiple languages, which Dolores Le Chapelle speaks about in her book, Sacred Land, Sacred Sex, and Rapture of the Deep. And she speaks about throughout culture this I believe she says the noumena, or that might not be the correct word, but the powers. And she goes through the languages. So he wrote, using the name Allah. And that's not, that wasn't wrong of him to do. And he was actually speaking Arabic in, I believe, the Muslim Empire. He was actually the chief physician to the Sultan of Egypt, because he was an herbalist and a healer and you could think of it almost like a polymath. He was a very, very intelligent man. And one of the things that he says on page 323, please buy this book, Stanford University. They just published it. Very big deal. It's the first translation that's been done from the Judeo-Arabic since the Shlomo Pines edition in the 1970s. And it wasn't even in hardback. It was paperback. The whole... it was the layout of the book, the overall presentation, and then the translation, it all just wasn't the best. And so the fact that a serious, renewed scholarship has been invested into this ancient work of Jewish philosophy, which is still read and celebrated to this day, and is also burned and hated by some groups of individuals, where it's forbidden to be studied, like in certain Hasidic dynasties like Breslov. The followers of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. Oh gosh, who's buried in Uman, Ukraine, which is the freaking funniest thing. In the midst of this whole Russia-Ukraine war, people don't realize, I mean, Jews realize, but there's hundreds of thousands of mystical Jews who travel every year to Uman. Uman Rosh Hashanah, Uman Rosh Hashanah, Uman Rosh Hashanah. And they're just as happy as can be. They're like, I don't care if a war's going on. We're here for Rosh Hashanah. And all these Russians and Ukrainians are just like, and they're like, listen, we're here for God. Which is thoroughly beautiful. So it's a big deal that this book was published. I'm not an Orthodox Jew, and perhaps right now it could be good to tell you that Jordan Peterson, who was said, I believe, by the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or one of these silly agencies, agency infiltrated organizations, they said that Jordan Peterson was, I believe, the most influential public intellectual alive, or something. Is definitely in the West. Brett Weinstein, a very wonderful, seemingly man. Some people don't like him. Don't ask Candace Owens about these people. She's got a problem with a lot of people, and we respect that about her, and we love her. But she doesn't like the Weinsteins. Einstein, Weinsteins. These people are geniuses. At any rate, Brett Weinstein, he says that he believes that Jordan Peterson is... history will look back at him as being at least equal in influence and philosophical importance as Carl Jung. Now, many people might not care about Carl Jung, but for everyone who does love Carl Jung and really kind of sees what his understanding, what he was revealing through his understanding of psychology and his application as a psychologist, I think a lot of people would realize it's a very big statement. I say that because Jordan Peterson said in hour 1 minute 22 section or second 20, so 1:22:20 of an interview that he had with Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, which the whole interview didn't go really well, and it was a little awkward. But towards the end there, it was pretty fruitful. At any rate, Sheikh Hamza's amazing, and Jordan's amazing. It was just weird. Jordan's weird about Islam, but so they're talking about it, and so because Sheikh Hamza Yusuf is a Muslim, and so right at that timestamp, Jordan Peterson says, I'm trying to figure out how to be a Jew, a Christian, and a Muslim at the same time. So you'll notice that the references which we're going to be going through today as it pertains to the subject that we'll be exploring, the bottomless pit of desire and the true salvation and liberation of our souls. Ah, yes, may God help us all. You'll see that from Saint Isaac the Syrian to Saint John of the Ladder, you'll see a very, very authoritative and strong Christian wisdom, whereas with the Rambam, you'll see a very strong Jewish Orthodox, the strongest. I mean, these people are saints. These people are towering. There's almost no, just so you know, that these individuals, Saint John of the Ladder and Saint Isaac the Syrian, the opening remarks from the archbishops, Archimandites, I believe, maybe what they're called. That's probably different. They say that if all of the works of the desert monastic, esoteric monastic tradition of Christianity, if all of the works of their entire wisdom of the desert fathers and mothers, if it was all lost and we only had the works of Saint Isaac the Syrian from like the 6th century, 7th century, it would be more than enough. We'd have everything. This man is a very ancient saint, very wise man. I would highly recommend you get these books, and we'll be going through them. I'll show you which ones to get in which versions. And so you'll notice that then we have most authoritative with the Christians, highly authoritative and indisputable. And then we've got the Rambam, again, indisputable. Unless you're Hasidic, then you might not like, certain aspects of the Rambam because of how much he goes into philosophy and some of the more mystical, maybe more hard line they don't like. And Rambam can be a little controversial in terms of like, philosophy and somewhat theology. But in general, from Moses to Moses, none is like Moses. He's recognized as one of the greatest towering giants that the entire Jewish nation has produced in the past 2,000 years. Indisputably. I mean, regardless. So very much. And then we've got Al-Ghazali, who is called the proof of Islam. The proof of Islam. And this is amazing text. Holy text. Got to treat them with care. And I wish they had a better version of this. I don't know if there is. I'll continue looking. But this is a great book. It's called The Alchemy of Happiness. And truly, I think for everyone interested in walking the path of true happiness in really the transcendental quality that word is really pointing to, it's not exactly like, yeah, I'm happy I had cake. Quite the opposite of maybe the cake happy. It's a sort of really profound inner state of tranquility and love and joy. It's this quality which we can explore another time. It's very beautiful. It's the first word of Psalms. It's this ashrei, this which literally means happy, asher, happy, but ashrei, it really has this connotation of a blessed state. And this is most likely what I've heard scholars state, like Bishop Barron, is that his name? Catholic man, I believe. he said that when Yeshua was speaking about, I believe, the Beatitudes, that essential state which is being described is blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are those who mourn. That blessed state, it's hearkening back, I believe, according to him, to this state of ashrei, this transcendental state of happiness and joy, like ashrei adam mipached tamid, like King Solomon said, which is absolutely so beautiful. And we should totally get into that today too if we've got time. And then we've got and then Rumi as well. Al-Ghazali is universally acknowledged within likewise Islam as the proof of Islam. I mean, he's like a towering giant of the Islamic tradition. Again, universally recognized. This is a great one. Please get it. 2-volume set. Worth it for so many reasons. And we're going to be getting into this today. And then Rumi. Please, God, study Rumi. I mean, don't listen to music. Listen to Rumi. Rumi is like drinking wine. I've drank wine. I've drank enough wine to know. I keep the Shabbat, I mean, you go to Passover, you have a bottle of wine to yourself on one night, at least 4 glasses. And that's just the appetizer. No, it's a big celebration. We're getting liberated from the tyranny of our slave masters. It's time to rejoice. And so, but trust me, reading Rumi in modern day music sucks. So you're not missing out on much. And then Rumi, you're going to hear in this poem I'm going to read to you. Wow. You're going to be blown away. You're going to be, it's intoxicating. It's intoxicating. It's really beautiful poetry. I mean, you read his poetry. I can kind of imagine how transformative his real poetry in the Persian must have been. I mean, just wow. Because the English, but this is the Oxford edition. It was just recently completed, 6-volume set of the Masnawi. Thank you, God. Got it for my birthday. Thank you, God. Oxford World Classics, a new translation by Jawed Mujadadi. Rumi, the Masnawi. This is book 5 we're going to be reading from today. Oxford University. They just finished it. You got to buy it. Super affordable. 6-volume set. Super affordable. And just read it and just meditate on it before you go to bed. It's poetry. We as a civilization, as I've said and will continue to say, we need to be in the habit of sharing poetry with each other. Regardless of who you are and what you believe or which tradition you're coming from, I hope that you'll see, both from Jordan Peterson's point that I mentioned, that quote, as well as the source material, the primary source material that we're going to be drawing from today. It's eclectic. It's the 3 Abrahamic faiths and Christianity, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, in that order. And then we've also got Sheikh Ibn Ata'illah al-Iskandari. Still learning Arabic. So this book, very good. A book of Sufi, a collection of Sufi aphorisms. Kitab al-Hikam, the book of the wisdom, or the wisdom book. And praise God, this is a great. We're going to be quoting from this today, and perhaps we'll start here, along with the Rambam, which we'll get back to. And I couldn't be more excited to share this with you today, and really weave them all together in such a beautiful way that you realize watching these religions debate each other, it's meaningful, it's exciting, it's no doubt entertaining, very rarely productive. But what we should be doing is seeking the kernel and beyond the husk. There's an inner light, a transformative wisdom that is being communicated to us by the great sages and saints of the world. And we really do a disservice to them and a disservice to ourselves by spending so much time disagreeing and arguing about these dogmatic theological or philosophical positions, which are no doubt worth disagreeing about. And I'm not trying to whitewash the disagreements. I love debate. But the light, there's a light. And sometimes the light, it's like a map. I use this metaphor in my book, that I'm writing, and have been writing for years. Stay tuned with the help of God. It's like a map. A map. Imagine you were given a divine map, a holy map, and it was so beautiful, so intricate that mamash you could get lost in the map. And so many people, they're looking at the map and they're thinking, oh yes, over here is this section, and there's this water over here, and there's a mountain pass over here, and if you take this route, this, and if you take that route, this, and okay, there's this building over here with these people, and there's this going on here. Beware of these traps in this location. Don't go this route. So many people, they get so excited about the profundity of the map and its meaning, knowledge, wisdom, understanding. It's so vast and intricate and luminous. You forget the map was mamash. Literally, it was supposed to take you somewhere. And it only ever means something to the person who walks the path. It's like a man who thinks he's a sailor because he's in a boat that stays in a harbor. I also use that analogy in the book. And he's up on that boat going, I'm in the water. I'm in my ship. My ship, your ship sucks. And they're arguing about their ships. And I'm not trying to totally conflate religions and their disagreements, but certainly you realize that the ship was meant to take you somewhere. This wisdom is a ladder. This truth that we've been given, it's a ladder. And through the process, we learn a lot about ourselves, the goal, and the process. And so, here we go. Open your heart, open your mind, and may we seek the truth of the light of God above all things. A lot more coming in the book. But the Kitab al-Hikam by Sheikh Ibn Atta'illah start off like this. On disciplining the ego on page 151, you being on the lookout for the vices hidden within you is better than your being on the lookout for invisible realities that have been veiled from you. You being on the lookout for the vices hidden within you is better than you being on the lookout for the invisible realities which have been veiled from you. Commentary. O seeker, you are eager to discover hidden matters. You desire to know of the divine mysteries, secrets, and subtleties. You consider these matters to be the goal. Remember that to incline the heart in this direction and pursue these hidden entities is not for your welfare. This attitude is in fact harmful for you. It is better for you to view your spiritual defects such as showing off, envy, pride, etc., and to concern yourself with their elimination. If in the course of your spiritual journey some mystery is revealed to you, do not attach significance to it. Keep in mind that your purpose is the purification of your ego from evil attributes. Now, the Christians will agree with this, and so will the Jews. Oftentimes in our day and age, especially in our day and age, it's the bright shining lights of esoteric wisdom. They're so secretive and they're so exciting, and what's in those books and what's in those books and what's in those top secret knowledge over here and top secret knowledge over there. And no doubt, I think that knowledge is power. And that's why I invest so much money in books, and in books that have become banned or out of print or are no longer read or can't be read, or it's hard to find, or they're rare, or they're ancient. And so like one of the books I have is it's out of print. It's like $873 to purchase one volume, and I got it when it was like $40. What a return on investment. But no, King Solomon says, buy wisdom and don't sell it. Don't sell it. Give it to your children, or give it to someone who cares. And so I hope you care. Another one of these books, $300 for one volume now, and I've got all three. It's almost $1,000 just in one grouping of books. And so oftentimes we can be, especially in this age of Chris Bledsoe, and especially in this age of interdimensional entity hysteria, or great fascination with interdimensional beings and entities. The conversation surrounding extraterrestrials, aliens, the documentaries coming forth, the State Department, the CIA, Congress, we're being a little bit started to be inundated with a conversation surrounding NHI, non-human intelligences, and those entities and beings and their technology and their history and our history and everything that unravels from that whole conversation. And so it's important for us to remind ourselves, principally here as well as every day in our life, what is the goal? Why are we here? What are we doing? Because if not for that, I think it was Solzhenitsyn who said, he said, intellectual giants, but moral dwarfs? No. Intellectual. My apologies. Oh, technological giants, but moral dwarfs or infants. Maybe that was someone else. Omar Nelson Bradley. Maybe he said that. Okay. I'm not sure. Huh. So there we go. Insightful. Someone says it's Carl Jung. Okay, so a few different people are being attributed to this quote, but we've got a few people telling us how retarded we are with automatic machine guns and nuclear weapons. The point is just that. What is the goal? The goal, why are we living? Why are we here? The prophets, the saints, the sages, the philosophers, poets, great writers and thinkers, musicians throughout history, they have given us a treasure of knowledge, and they've opened up to us an entire world of light and meaning and wisdom. And so much of it was lost throughout time, but so much of it remains with us today. And Sheikh Ibn Atta'illah, I wish I knew his name. I don't know if that's his name. I wish I knew his name better. Sheikh Ali? No. He said, do not be overly fantasized, or do not lose yourself in the do not become overly attached to seeking after these interdimensional entities and magic, or trying to conjure realities or communicate to entities. This could be for your harm. This could harm you. You know, the Arcturians and the Reptilians and the Greys and the Nordics and these people, and gaining contact and communicating with entities. It's a little bit of a slippery slope, just so we're all aware. Interacting with entities, non-human intelligence, is a rather ancient practice, and it is not all that glitters is gold, as they say. And so a spirit of discernment is very important, and really a proper prioritization of what we're talking about here. Because if you're already conceding, which Sam Harris hilariously did in his debate with Jordan Peterson, they did like freaking 1 million, and it's like 1 million hours. And so it's a little bit difficult to find that quote in there. But he says, I'm not even, Sam Harris says, you correct me on this, try and challenge me on this. He says, I'm not even disputing the idea to Jordan Peterson. He says, I'm not even disputing the potential reality that there could be higher non-human intelligences that can communicate to humans. And it's like, brother, you conceded the debate. brother, 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 what are you talking about? That's like you shot yourself in the foot and you're teaching a gun safety course. Kaboom! It's like, whoa, you know, you're an atheist. What are you talking about? And he goes, well, I just don't know if these books are the correct wisdom from these interdimensional entities. It's like, well, brother, this is what we got. And we've got a lot of it. And we got to be careful when we start talking about channeled material and entities. And, well, this entity says to do this. And it's like, yeah, I bet. The Mayans had all sorts of entities who told them to do all sorts of things. And so that's principally not even the goal. The goal is not for you to be communicating with angels, even though that's certainly an aspirational goal. The real goal is the purification of our heart from evil, vice, and the passions. And this is a 100% what the entire book, The Ladder of Divine Ascent, is about. And of course, it's about more than virtue ethics. It's actually, Christianity arguably is, I think, a revelation of virtue ethics, except it's a revelation on virtue itself. It's actually a complete revelation. It's a very profound wisdom how they understand virtue, how Christians understand virtue. It's a very bright light. They understand what they're talking about, especially when it comes to that regard. And I'm not a Christian, but I really respect Yeshua and the saints of all the world. and so here we go. We need help to understand these things, and I would like to tell you they're here to help us. Okay. So the Rambam, just to be clear, he does say be very careful. Don't really talk to people about my book. He says on page 15, I charge whoever reads this work of mine to promise in God's name not to gloss or comment on a word of it to anyone beyond what recognized Torah scholars before me have taught. Whatever you glean here that was not set forth by some reputable authority must not be expounded upon to others. Nor should you rush to refute it. What you took me to be saying might be counter to my intent. So you would be requiting with injury the help I offer, repaying bad for good. Psalms 38:21. Let anyone into whose hand this work falls study it well. If it slakes his thirst as to but one problem, he should thank God and be happy with the insight he has won. But if he finds nothing at all helpful, he should just think of it as if it had never been written. And if any of it looks unsound by his lights, he should tilt the balance charitably, even by stretching a point. We owe that much to anyone, let alone to our scholars and exponents of the Torah who work creatively to help us toward the truth as best they see it. And then he talks about how even a beginner, intermediate, or advanced can all really benefit from his work, The Guide to the Perplexed, the Moreh Nevukim in Hebrew. And it's a very, very profound text. It's very good, very helpful. And it's not like you have to agree with everything in it to appreciate, obviously, so much of it. And that's one thing that people find very difficult it's like they throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's like, you don't have to agree with every single thing that a person says to appreciate the light and the transformative wisdom that's being communicated in 90% of a text. And so, like, I disagree with some of the things he says about agricultural law. And I have a machlochet with the Rambam. I've got an argument with the Rambam. And certainly he's probably much more wise than me. And I'm seeking to learn, but I'm also seeking to question. I mean, Abraham questioned God. And that's what the Jews, I love the Jews. They celebrate questioning. They celebrate argument. The entire Gemara is just rabbis arguing. So 2 Jews, 3 opinions, as the saying goes. But he says on page 323, it is clear by now surely that most prophecy is symbolic. for its medium is the imagination. But we should also understand something of metaphor and hyperbole, for they too occur in scriptural texts, and if taken literally and not seen as hyperbolic and rhetorical, or if metaphors are taken in the base sense of their terms and not seen as figurative, gross absurdities arise. The sages clearly state in Tractate Tamid 29a that the Torah exaggerates. The word of God, it exaggerates. And so it uses hyperbole, and it's teaching us something. And we see this, for example, as evidence. They offer, quote, in Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 28, great cities that were walled up to heaven. The walls were up to heaven. And so they use that. He says, right, correct. They're not literally up to heaven. It's a metaphor. It's hyperbole. Comparably, you see this in Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 20. Oh, you're going to love this verse. I bet you didn't even know this is in the Bible. It says, do not curse the king, even in your thought, and do not curse the rich, even when you're alone in your bedroom. For a bird in the sky will carry your voice, and perhaps a winged entity could betray the matter. So if you contemplate that, it's definitely not talking about real birds. So it's using a symbol to convey another truth. Oh gosh, I love that. On the same pattern, it says, okay, and that's Ecclesiastes, and then we've got Amos 2, verse 9. On the same pattern, it says, yet I destroyed the Amorites before them that were as tall as cedars. So it's obviously a metaphor, the Rambam is saying. This is frequent in all of the prophet's speech. Things are said hyperbolically and rhetorically, not with tight precision. So it's not literally indicating that birds are going to listen to you while you're in your bedroom and maybe go fly and tell someone. But it is talking about something. They're not literally as tall as trees. The walls weren't literally up to heaven. And so obviously, but the Rambam, his work, he's so incredibly helpful. Even if you disagree with him, he says the principal thing we need to understand is the words as they're being communicated and what they mean. So when it says we were made in the image and likeness of God, but then we're told that God has no image and likeness, what? Or what is the difference between the word mishpat, tzedakah, chesed? What is justice and beauty and grace? Or what is the purpose of the entire commandments? Why were we given the whole Torah? What does it mean when it says that God has a hand, God has a foot, God has eyes, God has ears, God has a face, God has a back, God walks, God rises, God descends? Certainly, no. Certainly in the, or perhaps in what sense? Because if we are to understand the entity that we're speaking about in terms of its eternally transcendent essence, then how are we to make sense of such temporally restrictive anthropomorphizations? And so he helps us. The Guide to the Perplexed. Please read more. Stanford University. And so we continue. The bottomless pit to which so many of us have fallen and find ourselves fully entrapped within this prison of sin and virtue, and in need, in some form or fashion, of a true transformational liberation of our souls. All the religions, Abrahamic faiths, fully agree with this sentiment that we are in a prison of sorts. We are in a prison, and the dunya is a sort of prison. Muhammad says this social milieu of this reductionistic, materialistic nihilism of secular society, in this whole illusion of this social self, this personality that we've become fully identified with as citizens of a nation state. We are a soul And we must come from that place first and truly break free from the chains. This is what we are taught, the chains of oppression, of sin, passion, and our false identifications of truth and identity of ourselves, the world, and God. And so, one of the principal ways that we are to do this, is through fasting. Now, to exemplify the significance of fasting, we can speak about it. Ghazali says this, also Ibn Arabi says this in the 4 Pillars of Spiritual Transformation that he wrote. Very good. Very small, like 30 pages. Like, very, very small. So we got 7 books now. Also, universally, Sheikh Al-Akbar, the great Sheikh, like very, very exalted Sufi saint, who incidentally says some very strange things, I believe, about, well, we don't have to get into that, but it also relates to a few very interesting things in terms of, we'll leave that there. He says that one of the 4 pillars is fasting. And Saint John of the Ladder, about the 6th century CE, says in chapter or step 14 in this book, The Ladder of Divine Ascent, by the Holy Transfiguration Monastery outside of, I think the publishing company is outside of Boston. I think it's like Boston Monastic Books, but it is, let's see, Holy Transfiguration Monastery Edition, Brooklyn, Massachusetts. So look for that edition. It's hardcover. It's extremely beautiful. It has iconography throughout the entire text. It's like full page length. It's colored red. It's very beautiful. It's got a few icons. It has wonderful headings at the beginning of the chapters. Oh my gosh, hardcover, well worth $70. And you're going to be meditating on this text a lot. And so it's worth the purchase. He says in step 14 on the Ladder of Divine Ascent, which are all virtues and vices that are being transformed and properly calibrated, each rung of the ladder, which is also completely identical to the Sufi path of Sufi path of initiation, as clearly stated by William Chittick in his book, The Sufi Path of Knowledge. I can't get into all the quotes and references for everything. I'm writing a book. So at any rate, he says in step 14, kind of section 29 of that, he says, if you have promised Christ to go by the straight and narrow way, restrain your stomach, because by pleasing it and enlarging it, you break your contract. Attend, and you will hear him who says, spacious and broad is the way of the belly that leads to perdition of fornication, to the perdition of fornication. And many there are who go in by it, because narrow is the gate and straight is the way of fasting that leads to the life of purity, and few there are who find it. Now obviously this is quoting Matthew 7:13-14, or quoting Yeshua's teaching. But what Saint John of Climacus, Saint John of the Ladder, is indicating to us here, he identifies the very path of Yeshua, the narrow path, as fasting. And that to indulge yourself in the delicacies of this planet and to indulge your desire in your stomach, it is breaking your contract with God to follow his path with all of your heart, soul, and all that you exceed in, as the Shema says. So, with that being said, the indication of how, and just one more thing from St. John of Climacus in the same section, step 14, a little lower, he says, Satiety in food, step 14, verse 5. Satiety in food is the father of fornication, but affliction of the stomach is the agent of purity. Now, he also says, he says it a little clearer later on when he says, the prince of demons is the fallen Lucifer, and the prince of passions is gluttony. Exactly. So he identifies the most severe thing in terms of evil and our entrapment into evil through the passions as gluttony. Like Lucifer almost identified with the severity of the devil himself. And we'll totally continue this because you're going to be very inspired by what we read here. So what we are understanding now is a very profound focus on fasting and why this is going to be so significant for your and my and all of our souls' proper and true initiation and purification of our hearts and souls, and reconciliation and salvation of our souls. So we are taught this way, the way of fasting, by John the Baptist, who was one of the greatest men who ever lived. He also walked this path of, actually, he walked all four pillars, of the prophet's path: the seclusion, silence, vigilance, and fasting, alone in the wilderness. Same thing that Ibn Arabi taught, St. John the Baptist. And then we're also taught, of course, that Moses is fasting on Mount Sinai when he receives the Torah. And all of the children of Israel have to do a fast of sorts for 3 days in a purification before the receiving of the Torah, so to speak. And then we have Elijah. So fasting is well established. Even in the book of Joel, chapter 2, it says when the darkness and destruction of God is coming upon the children of Israel for their sins, it says, all of this is going to come. God, the earth is going to quake. The sun, verse 10, chapter 2, the earth quakes before them, the heavens tremble, the sun and the moon are darkened, and the stars withdraw their shining. And the Lord utters his voice before his army, for his camp is very great. For he executes his word in strength. For the day of the Lord is great and terrible, and who can abide in it? Yet, even now, says the Lord, turn to me with all of your heart, with fasting, with weeping, and with mourning. Really indicating to us that in the midst of the worst and most catastrophic moments of our life, fasting is seriously being indicated to us as a very important quality for us to nullify those harsh decrees as revealed by Moses as well. God says he's going to destroy all of the children of Israel on Mount Sinai. He fasts, he cries, he prays, makes teshuvah to God, and that nullifies this harsh decree to a certain extent. This fasting and this path of teshuvah, it's being indicated very powerful to us. It's very important. Fasting, we must fast. So, Al-Ghazali states for us in The Alchemy of Happiness here such a profound sentiment. He says that Muhammad said on page 477, the virtue and spiritual reward of hunger, disclosing that. He said, Muhammad said, the Lord and the senior of all acts is hunger. The Lord and the senior of all acts, namely of devotion, religion, and worship. I'm putting those words in there, but you can also obviously see, is hunger or fasting. He also says, Muhammad says, the most virtuous of you to God Most High is the person whose meditation and hunger are lengthy, and the most despicable of you to God is the person who eats a lot, drinks a lot, and sleeps a lot. He also says that Aisha reported, one of his wives reports, and a lot of the prophets had multiple wives, so we kind of can't have a double standard there, because, We're interested in the wisdom here. Don't get lost in the husk. We seek the kernel. What is the light that is being principally revealed to us by these prophets? Aisha reported that Muhammad, the messenger of God, said, "Continually knock upon the door of heaven until the door is open." And Aisha, asked, "O messenger of God, with what shall I knock?" Very good question, because it's not a physical door. And what? God has a door? Knock on the door? It's actually very reminiscent of Yeshua, who spoke a very similar teaching in the Gospels. Knock and the door will be opened. Continually knock. With what shall I knock? He, the messenger of God, said, with hunger and thirst. Fast. Okay. And then we have Aisha also reported that the messenger of God never satiated himself with food. He would never indulge himself in the food. And then we also have Sahal Tustari on page 479. He said, "The saints and the wise have searched and found nothing more beneficial in religion and the world than hunger, and found nothing more harmful to the afterlife than satiety." Satiety. These holy saints and sages. Do you realize the profundity of what I'm reading to you? These are not small statements. The greatest thing you can do, the most intense thing you can do, the most important thing you can do. They're all very much saying, very important. Oh, just to top it off, I love this by Saint Issac the Syrian. If you read this book, also from Holy Transfiguration Monastery, an even more robust and better, I mean, not better, they're both just fantastic, but more robust book by Holy Transfiguration Monastery, hardcover, embroidered with gold. The iconography is just fantastic. The notes on the bottom, the index in the back, all very good, helpful. He says on page 146, "Understand what I say. There can be no knowledge of the mysteries of God on a full stomach." Saul, and then we've got we have this from the Christians. We have this from the holy Christian saints. We have this from the Muslim saints. They're saying, "The saints and the wise have searched and found nothing more beneficial in religion and in the world than hunger, and found nothing more harmful to the afterlife than satiety of desire." Satiety. King Solomon said, "Kol amal ha'adam lafihu v'gam ha'nefesh lo timale." He said, everything that a man does is for their mouth. All the work that man does is for his mouth, but his soul is never full. His soul is never full. This is the exact thing that the Buddha realized when he was a prince and he was satiated with all of his desires and satiated with anything he could possibly want. And he found his soul empty. He found something lacking, and he sought out the Dharma, or a transcendental truth. And then King Solomon says, even more shocking, he says, "Ki teshev li lechom et moshel bin tavin et asher lefanecha v'samta sakin baloecha im ba'al nefeshata al tigal laha'ashir mebinatecha chadal." That when he says v'samta sakin baloecha im ba'al nefeshata, wow! I mean, shocking words from this mountain of a man, King Solomon. May God have mercy upon him. What a holy soul. Thank you, God, for King Solomon. He said, when you sit down, ki teshev lilachom et moshel, when you sit to eat with a ruler, he said, bin tavin et asher lefanecha, he said, you should understand deeply what is in front of your face. V'samta sakin baloecha im ba'al nefeshata, and put a knife to your throat. If you are a master of your soul, Do not desire to be rich. Oh, I think I skipped a verse there in the Hebrew. Oh, yes, I did. I did. I did. I'll need to go back and memorize it a little better. I skipped a verse. My apologies. My apologies. There's one more. Do not desire his delicacies. Put a knife to your throat if you are a master of your soul. And do not desire after his delicacies, for his bread is deceitfulness. Do not desire to be rich. And from your understanding, cease. It's hard to translate these things, especially when you're reading it in Hebrew. You're like, wow. And it rhymes, and it's so boom. It's so pow, pow, pow. It hits hard. And so he's saying, do not desire after the delicacies of these rich people. When you are in front of people with the Gucci and the jewelry and the food and the wine and the champagne and the meat and the cheese and the Ferraris, the delicacies and the golden toilets of this dunya, of these perverted society. He says, put a knife to your throat if you're a master of your soul. Do not desire after his delicacies. Liberate yourself. And it's using food in that craving for food. Kol adam ha'amal. In a different verse, King Solomon says, Kol amal ha'adam lafihu v'gam ha'nefesh loti maleh. He says, everything that a man does is for his mouth, and his soul is empty. And it's exemplifying this exact quality that we're speaking about, this seeking after desires, this over-attachment to fulfilling desire, which is a bottomless pit. Desire is like a fire. The more you feed it, the more it grows. You cannot escape it through that means. And so fasting is a principally important thing for us. And Imam al-Ghazali, oh wow, he breaks it down for us. And what does he say? He says there are 10 benefits to fasting. It's like, know that the merit of hunger does not dwell in the anguish of fasting. And anyone who fasts knows that. On page 479, it's like you're just suffering. It's like, no. I mean, there's a certain benefit in suffering, but that's not the benefit. He goes, why are we fasting? He says, just as the merit of medicine does not lie in its actual bitterness, there's a medicine inside of it. It's not just bitter, even though bitter actually is medicinal in its actual qualitative effect on the tissue state itself. There's an actual, if you study Matthew Wood's the 6 tissue state model of the physiomedicalist tradition of the early Americas, you get into the tissue state model, which is actually very interesting how it affects the Ayurveda in India, as well as traditional Chinese medicine in China. That specific understanding of the qualitative effect of the tissue states and the actual energetics in the taste of a thing, a bitter thing, a sweet thing, a pungent or spicy thing, a sour thing, a salty thing, a drying thing, an astringent thing, a moistening thing, and we can get into the entire tissue state model. I would love to have Dr. Sajapapam, herbalist Sajapapam, and alchemist Sajapapam on the podcast one day soon. But he says that fasting has principally 10 benefits, my brothers and sisters in this beautiful planet. Help us all. He says the first benefit, hang on to this, folks. We're just getting started. He says there's 10 benefits. Write this down. No, I'm just kidding. Write this, buy this book. So he says the first benefit is that it purifies and illuminates the soul, while satiety blinds people's souls and makes them dumb of thought. And so he's going to elaborate much more extensively on each one of the benefits. I'm just going to go through and give some of the headings to you so you realize, wow, there's a lot of benefit in fasting, not just from a ketogenic modern day understanding of health and wellness. Like Mark Hyman talks about how they're reversing cancer with ketogenic diet. They're reversing diabetes, reversing Alzheimer's. They're reversing, all forms of sickness through ketogenic diets. And ketosis is, it's a state which really comes about through fasting. And you can a little bit manipulate it by just removing carbs. But fasting induces this state of ketosis. So the first benefit, it purifies and illuminates and really strengthens your minds, while this overly comfort, just eating and drinking, satiated of the flesh, it's really going to blind your soul. It's going to blind your mind, and it's going to make you stupid, make them dull of thought. Okay. And then he gets into that and then elaborates. I'm not going to go there. Number 2, for the sake of time. Number 2, the soul becomes refined so that it finds pleasure in the remembrance of God and the conversation regarding God. The hardness or the harshness and hardness of the soul arise from satiety, so that every remembrance is made with the tongue and does not enter the soul. So it has a way of refining your sense of satiation itself. You almost, once you stop eating, I haven't eaten really today. I think I had yogurt. I didn't eat today. But thank God, went and took a mikvah in the river. It's January up here at 8,000 feet elevation, and the river is frozen. And then I took an hour-long sauna and supplemented. Thank you, God. But the second benefit is that you actually find a refinement in your sense of satisfaction itself. Very beautiful, very beautiful. And you start to value things of a higher quality. You start finding a deeper appreciation in the actual remembrance of God and these things which transcend our physical body. You begin to feel satiated in a deeper, more transcendental sense, finding that inner qualitative satiation, rather than just I have food and so I feel good. The third benefit is that while arrogance and negligence are the gates of hell, humility, helplessness, and weakness are the thresholds of heaven, and satiety brings arrogance and heedlessness, while hunger brings weakness and humility. And we see this. The pompous idiots of our country, they're all fat, like Randy Fine. I mean, not to speak disparagingly of him, even though he did, it is shocking. He told on like public forum on X, someone posted a picture of children starving in Gaza. For what it's worth, there's a congressman in Florida. They posted a picture, and they said, how can you support this? And Congressman Randy Fine, who weighs about 10,000 pounds at this point, I mean, certainly he's got to realize obesity is a disease. It's not a big boned thing, They posted a picture and they tagged him, and he said, like, starve away. He said, starve away to these children who were literally starving. And these people are begging for help. They're helpless. And they realize the people who are not fat, and they have this, the people who are fat, they have this pompous arrogance about them, that they're satiated and all their needs are met. And so, hey, it is what it is. What happens to you? You can see how it breeds satiety of spirit and body, brings this disposition of indifference towards apathy towards other people, and really this hardness of heart. And the fasting brings the humility and the understanding that we are truly reliant on so much more than ourselves. The fourth benefit is that when one is satiated, one forgets about hunger and feels no compassion for God's people. Right, we can see that kind of starting to emerge in the third benefit. One forgets the punishment of the hereafter, but when we forget about the afterlife and the accountability for how we're living and what we're saying. But when one is hungry, one recalls the people of hell. When one is thirsty, one recalls the thirst of people of the resurrection. And so when you are fasting and you are thirsty, it naturally brings about a compassionate spirit for others. It brings about this empathy. Thank you, God. The fifth benefit is that which is at the head of all benefits of spiritual happiness. Well, and this book is, after all, The Alchemy of Happiness. And we're seeing a very important benefit to unlocking that happiness through fasting. It is that one keeps oneself under control. So through fasting, you're building a strong inner discipline of soul and mind, of discipline of disposition, of self-control. Yes. Okay. And the sixth benefit is sleeping less. You're going to sleep less, and so you'll have more time to pray, to study, to work, to be with your family. You're going to be less obsessed with food. Okay. The seventh benefit is that time becomes ample for one who may attend to work and learning. Okay, so kind of related to number 6 is because you're sleeping less, you have a lot more time. The eighth benefit is that whoever eats sparingly, or is practicing fasting a lot, or in a state of ketosis a lot, is always healthy and is delivered from the torment of illness. There we go. Praise God. That's absolutely very well attested to by our modern day and age, as you can see with the work of Dr. Mark Hyman with what was that? The Cleveland. No, what is it? He works out there and very famous. They do a lot of great studies, but his interview with Tucker Carlson and so many others, Joe Rogan, it's very good. His research on ketosis and what they're doing, it's very good. The ninth benefit is that whoever eats sparingly, or is a lot of time fasting, there is little expense, and he does not become in need of much wealth. Praise God. He saves his money. And then he can actually give more money in charity, give more food in charity. That empathy, it starts to just build, and it has economic benefits for him. The 10th benefit is that when one has mastered one's stomach, one masters the giving of charity. Oh, okay. Giving in abundance and being more generous. So you can see how some of these actually go into the other one. And I sometimes start kind of seeing that, or remembering it, or anticipating it. And so you can see here, just a really, truly, and that's not an exhaustive list, but you can see that that's truly a wise list for some of the things that are unlocked and opened up through fasting. Now, I hope that you've seen thus far through the references that we've shown, this is a very well attested to path by Saint John the Baptist, Saint John of Climacus, Saint Isaac the Syrian, Imam al-Ghazali. We're going to see Rumi here as well, and all of the Sufi tradition. They have the tradition still, as far as I know. Perhaps the Christian monastic tradition has this, but I first realized that the Sufis actually still have a living path of initiation in a very specific sense, where a 40-day fast is a part of that initiation. 40-day fast is a part of that initiation. For some Sufi orders that I've read about. And that is very interesting, because Yeshua obviously does that, and Moses does that. And so to have that alive and well today, a 40-day fast, is, albeit I would have to assume that they are having water, at least at night, and I know that, it's well attested to, even on YouTube. You can just look up people doing 40-day water fasts, 21-day water fasts, water fasting as well. People may be afraid of that, but it's very well attested to, and has been revealed to us by the prophets, not just the doctors of the 21st century. And so you can see here, Saint Isaac the Syrian, he says something so transformatively emphatic when he says, understand this, that no secrets of God can be revealed to you on a full stomach. And the path of fasting is of upmost exalted status. St. John of the Ladder associates it with the very path of Yeshua, the narrow path of fasting. This is a very high exalted reality, and we're seeing associated this with Solomon. We see this all converging. There's a very strong emphasis being placed before you right here and now. You can see this is all universally attested to and agreed upon by all the world's traditions, and I'm not being exhaustive here. There's much more that can be said on these matters, which I will and am in the book. But to finish this off with a poem from Rumi, I want to invite you to listen to this to finish this out, because with everything that's been spoken about from all of the wonderful teachings we've revealed, and a little bit of a cameo, praise God, from the Rambam here, which there was more I wanted to share with that, but I really I had somewhere I needed to take this podcast. So, this is about the Prophet Muhammad and the fat man. Or how do you translate this? The Prophet Muhammad and the gluttonous guest, or this fat, huge man who's overweight, and he comes to Muhammad. And I want you to read this, or listen to this. Read it, study it, buy it. It's volume 5. This is in volume 5, book 5. page 9. And so if the word Muhammad, if the name Muhammad triggers you, I would like to just say this. The Muslim Ummah, or the Muslim nation people, they're a very large amount of people. They're, I think by the year 2075, going to be the predominant population kind of group on the planet. And there's a very large amount of strong men who adhere by this faith. And so I'd encourage everyone, it'd be good to not just demonize it and write it off. Seek to understand it on its own terms. Actually listen and seek to understand what is being communicated. I think you'll be surprised by some of the spiritual teachings that you hear. You know, it's not all fire, hell, and brimstone and jihad, which is apparently the way that a very large amount of people in the West still, unfortunately, conceptualize Islam. You know, the great, before we read this, the great linguist and Harvard graduate, I believe, in PhD, Thomas Cleary, who wrote a ton of great books. I've got a couple of his books on Eastern esotericism and training the samurai mind and the secrets of Japanese warfare and others. Dr. Thomas Cleary, he also he knew and was a master of 8 languages, and he also knew Arabic and translated the Quran. I believe he was a Westerner. And you know, he wrote in a book about Zen koans, and this is this is coming from Sheikh Hamza Yusuf in that interview that we started with at the beginning, where Sheikh Hamza quotes this, because Jordan is like, I just find Islam impenetrable and I'm not sure how to even make sense of it or how to approach it. And Sheikh Hamza is like, that doesn't make any sense, and that doesn't seem to be a genuine position. And he elaborates, and he talks about Dr. Thomas Cleary here, and he says that Thomas Cleary wrote a book on Zen koans. And if you know something about koans, Japanese or Zen Buddhist koans, you know, they're very strange, you know, and they're to break you out of a sort of way of thinking, this sort of over analytical way of thinking. And they're really interesting, like stories and parables. So one day, here's a koan. I can grab it for you if you need it. Oh, it's right there. The Book of Equanimity. Oh, yes. The Book of Equanimity, Illuminating Classic Zen Koans by Gary Shishin-Wick. Forward by Bernie Glassman. It's a pretty great. This contains the first ever comprehensive English commentary on one of the most beloved classical collections of Zen teaching stories or koans, making them vividly relevant to today's spiritual seekers and Zen students. So a lot of very great shocking wisdom here. But one of the koans is he said oh my gosh. Oh yeah, attention, case number 9. At Nassen's place one day, the monks of the east and west halls were arguing about a cat. Seeing this, Nansan held it up before them, saying, if you can say one word, I won't cut it in half. Everyone there made no response, and so Nansan cut the cat in half. Nansan later told Joshu what happened, and Joshu took off his straw sandals and put them on top of his head and went out. And Nansan remarked, yes, if you had been here, we could have saved the cat. That's good. And so Thomas Cleary, in his book about Zen koans, he says, you know, Westerners, we don't even need Zen koans. We've got a great koan right in front of us. He says, ask a Westerner about a classically, educated Western individual what they think about Islam. What do you think about Islam? And he said, and what you hear back from you is just going to be this just, throwing up of just misunderstanding and confusion and hatred. And I mean, all sorts of just prejudice and, terrible, and just completely out of nowhere kind of theories about of something. It really just shows you, as Sheikh Hamza says, that most people are operating with like a very low level of knowledge when it comes to an extremely large religion of Islam. It's a very large religion. And so, I'm going to be quoting from this religion here, as I've been doing, but with Rumi, who is a very strong Muslim and really believed in the holy prophets of God, Moses, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, David. He's just, all of his poetry is really saturated in the evocation of, or in, evoking these names of Solomon and David and Joseph and Abraham and Moses and Yeshua, just constantly evoking these holy prophets of God, constantly speaking about the holy words of these prophets. And he also, no doubt, speaks a lot about Muhammad because he's a Muslim. And so if the word Muhammad triggers you, then just try and just set that right there and say, okay, Muhammad, he's a spiritual teacher. He's an alleged prophet of like half of the global population, almost. They're like, extreme large numbers of individuals revere this figure and his wisdom. This is a very highly authoritative Sufi, mystical, spiritual master poet who is a Muslim. Let's just listen to what happens when Muhammad is approached in this poem from about the 12th century, or late 11th century, 12th century. What happens when this very fat unbeliever, this infidel, comes to Muhammad? What happens? Just try and get past the husk as we move into the kernel. What is the inner wisdom and light, this luminous light that is being revealed by this prophet? What is it teaching? What is it saying? Get past the name. What is it saying? Okay, page 9. And it goes on so much. Before this, I'd love to read, just start from the beginning. But page 9, it says, okay. Page. Okay, hold on. This. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Page 7. Infidels were the prophet's guests one time. Infidels, just really quick, an infidel is like an enemy of God, or a pagan, or a kafir, an unbeliever, someone who's this enemy. It's, and so they come to the prophet to be a guest at his house. And you're going to hear this imagery about swords and warfare a little bit early on, and you go, oh my gosh, an infidel and swords and warfare. What does Muhammad teach them? What does he teach them? Infidels were the prophet's guests one time. They all came to the mosque at dinner time. We've come expecting hospitality, O King who welcomes all humanity. We've come with much need from a far-off place. Shower us with your special light and grace. That just King who helps all men, strong or weak, turned to his good friends and began to speak. Friends, host a guest each so that you divide the work between you. You've my traits inside. Armies are filled with their king and strike blows with their swords due to this at their king's foes. You slash your sword due to your king's rage now. If not, how could you rage at brothers? How? The anger of your king reflects on you, making you club your brother as you do. Just please hold on, hang on. It's going to get very, very beautiful very quickly. Keep listening. The king's the soul. His troops are filled with him. The soul's waters filling streams up to the brim. If the king's spirit's water should be sweet, The streams fill with sweet water till complete, since subjects follow their king's faith alone. The Sultan of he formed has made this known. Ready. Each of the prophet's friends then chose one guest, among whom one was fatter than the rest. He was so huge, he didn't get selected. Like the cup's dregs, he stayed behind and was rejected. The prophet chose this man, spurned by the others. His goat herd had then 7 milk-filled mothers that stayed inside his home so he could be milked there before the meal more readily. That greedy fat man then stuffed down his throat the soup, the bread, and the milk from every goat. The household all grew angry then, each thinking about the goat's milk that they had longed to be drinking. The glutton tapped his belly like a drum when he had consumed the food of 18 men, then went up to his bedroom and reclined. The angry maid then slammed the door from behind. She even chained the door from the outside, enraged and hurt by that huge man inside. Then at the early hours that infidel heard nature's call with stomach pain as well. He hurried from his bed towards the door, but found it locked up from the corridor. That crafty man tried picking it, but he could not unlock the door and thus break free. In that cramped room he kept on trying this, with no success, perplexed in hopelessness. He went to sleep. Then after his failed scheme, he saw a desolate place within his dream. Since such an empty place was in his mind, asleep, he saw just that place of that kind. Then saw himself there, far away from all, and at that moment answered nature's call. On looking at his bedding once awake, he saw it shit filled due to his mistake. 100 stresses then filled him inside, and at this embarrassment he could not hide. My sleep is worse than being awake, no doubt. I eat shit one way and then I shit it all out. He screamed out, woe is me, oh woe is me, like infidels in graves so desperately, waiting just for the night to end, so then he'd hear the room's door open up again and scamper like an arrow from the bow, so no one would see him in there and know. This story's long, but I'll make it brief. The door was opened and he ran in relief. Muhammad opened up the door at dawn, giving that lost one access to move on. Keep listening. He opened it and then began to hide, to save from shame that stricken man's pride, so he could boldly walk outside once more and not see who had opened up the door. Either he was blocked out by something there, or God hid him so no one would be aware. God's dye, can cover up miraculously, veiling the viewer who would normally see. So he can't see the foe right by his side. God's power many more times multiplied. Muhammad saw what had happened there that night, but God concealed him from that fat guest's sight, so that a way out would appear from it, and he'd not fall disgraced inside a pit. But it was destined by God's wisdom's sway that he would see himself in such a way, so many hostile acts will help in fact. Destructions too can build and keep intact the soiled, poop-filled bed sheets through meddling intervention were brought then to the prophets. Close attention. Look here at what your guest did. It's so vile. And yet the mercy to all the worlds just gave a big smile and said, bring me a bucket here, and then wash with my own hands. I will wash it clean again. Each one jumped up to say, don't do that, please, for God's sake. No, not before your devotees. We'll clean this shit off. Leave it. Please don't start. This work is for rough hands and not for the heart. God said, by your life, meaning yours alone, made you his deputy upon the throne. We live in hope of simply serving you. If you do it instead, what shall we do? I know that, but it's different now, he said. There's a deep, he said, there's a deep reason I will wash it instead. They held back then. The prophet thus decrees and watched to see revealed mysteries. He scrubbed the shit off very carefully. Not for show or men's rules, but God's decree. You wash this filth, his heart said, so he'd hear. Deep wisdom lies behind your actions here. That infidel wretch had a keepsake that he noticed he'd lost and rushed back anxiously. He said, I've left an amulet I kept always with me in the room when I slept. Though quite embarrassed, he was ruled by greed. Greed is a dragon, it's not small. Take heed. He hurried in Muhammad's house door and saw the prophet in that room once more, cleaning the shit off for him on his own. As God's hand, evil eyes leave him alone. He then forgot his amulet, and he ripped off his collar emotionally. He slapped his own face, and he slammed his head against the door and the wall until he bled. Then both his head and his nose began to bleed. That prince felt pity, though he had no need. He screamed aloud, and people gathered there. That infidel said, People, please beware. He slammed his head, brainless skull, he'd protest. He'd beat his chest and scream, Oh, lightless breast. He then prostrated, Oh, all planet Earth, before you shame fills up one of low worth. You who are whole submit to his decree, while this mere part is lost in tyranny. You who are whole, shake meekly near his might, while I apart challenge, resist, and fight. He kept on looking at the heavens too, saying, Dear God, I dare not look at you. Once he had trembled more than men can face. The prophet drew him close in a deep embrace. He calmed him down and quieted his cries. He gave him knowledge and opened his eyes. Unless the cloud weeps, how can pastures grow? Unless the baby cries, how can breast milk flow? A 1-day-old knows just how to survive. I'll cry, and then that kind nurse will arrive. The ultimate wet nurse, too. Don't you see? Unless you cry, his milk won't come for free. God said, let them weep a lot. So heed his speech, till milk of his grace floats towards your reach. The sun's deep burning in the rain clouds weeping are the world's pillars. Join them as when weaving. If not for the sunshine heat and the rain clouds tear, body and accident would not be here. How would we have 4 seasons here if not for weeping clouds and a sunshine that's so hot? Since tears from clouds combined with sunshine's heat are what maintains this world of ours so sweet, make wisdom's sunshine burn and continue weeping, your eyes both glistening with the tears that you're weeping. Like babies, you need weeping eyes. Give up this world's bread, for it dries good moisture up. When body's leafy, then the soul shakes all its leaves off like a branch does during the fall. A leafy body means the soul's decreased. Reduce the body so the soul's increased. Now lend to God your body's leaves start to make a pasture grow inside of your heart. Loan it and cut down all your body's food to see appear the face that no eye has viewed. And when the body is empty of all this shit, with musk and lovely pearls the Lord fills it. It gives its filth, and exchange gets purity. Gaining, he'll purify you luckily. The devil scares you, saying, hey, watch out. You will be sorry with regret, no doubt. If you should waste your body now away, you'll be regretful and feel much dismay. Eat this. It's warm and good for your health too. Drink that. It's beneficial and healing too. Consider that your body is your steed. What's best is that on which it likes to feed. Don't change your habits. Problems will then start. 100 ailments from your brain to your heart. These are the devil's threats that are so evil. He also chants spells that hypnotize the people. He makes out that he's Galen just to trick and totally deceive your soul that's sick. This helps with pain and grief. He will repeat, he did the same to Adam with some wheat, which, side note, John of Climacus, we can go back there, and that also connects with the exact same teaching from John in step 14. He chants spells and makes curious noises too, so he can force a feeder bag on you as they do when they shoe a horse. You're prone to then see as a ruby, a mere stone. He grabs you by the ears as if his steed, and he drags you towards coveting and greed. He puts a horseshoe on your feet so aching distracts you from the path that you should be taking. His shoe is wavering and feeling doubt. Shall I do this? Shall I do that? Watch out! Do what the prophets chose to do. Refrain from deeds of those who are childish or insane. Heaven is ringed by this, the prophet said. Hardships, but they'll make crops thrive more ahead. The devil has his spells to cause mistakes, which lure to baskets even the toughest snakes. Though he be flowing water, he will block him. Though he be the world's expert, he will mock him. So join your intellect with a friend's, then read and fulfill their works, consulting men. This discourse could continue, for it is endless. That Bedouin was stunned by the great king's kindness. And I appreciate you staying here and listening to these holy words from these holy men. And truly, you and I must listen to the words of a prophet and not an adolescent boy. As Rumi said. And so I pray that in, us exploring and me directing you to these resources and these incredibly wise spiritual teachings, you will take more seriously your devotion to God, the Lord and the life, the light of all the worlds, and your opportunity and all of our opportunity on this planet at this time. And truly within that poem that we just read, there is just such a monumentally shocking amount of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and profound metaphor and rhetoric and image and symbol. And wow, it's truly intoxicating. And I'm sorry if I didn't do it justice. Read it for yourself. There's so many more. There's 6 volumes. The man's a spiritual genius. He's a spiritual genius. And if you want a far more accessible kind of introduction to Rumi's poetry, I just get the Essential Rumi by Coleman Marks. That's great too. But I like how the Oxford, as you can see, is a lot more serious. It feels like scholarly translation of the actual poetry. Whereas like that version of the poem in Coleman Marks, it's a lot shorter, and he kind of changes it, and I don't appreciate that. But I do love that work too. And so we can see here that we see the fat man. He's not, it's such a perfect symbol to invoke right now in this spiritual teaching of the bottomless pit in the ladder of divine ascent, because it was principally, we are identifying this infidel or this enemy of God, that which is to be overcome and defeated. And it goes on, and the fat man actually becomes a Muslim, and he transforms his whole life, and actually Muhammad invites him to stay another night and eat again with him, and then he won't eat, and he just wants to fast, and he's like, no, I'm good, I'm completely full. And then it's like, how could this dragon become filled with the food of an ant? And it just is so beautiful how it just continues and continues and continues. As Rumi says, this poem is endless because you can see what it's saying. You can see this is light of divine wisdom. It's endless, it's infinite. And this this infidel is identified with this gluttonous, fat, desirous man who's completely indulging in the flesh and has no even taste for such uh, a delicacy of wisdom. And yet, because of his encounter with the prophet and his wisdom and his embodied mercy, it transforms him from the inside out, and he leaves this path of gluttonous living and actually begins to start fasting and losing that weight, so to speak. No longer eating the food of 18 men and keeping 7 goats in his house so he can just always drink their milk all day long. Starts giving in charity, being more generous, being less self-centered, and living a life of just, he transforms. Now, truly, when you listen to that wisdom, that's the wisdom of Yeshua. That's the wisdom of Solomon. That's the wisdom of King David. That's the wisdom of Moses. That's the wisdom of Abraham. That's the wisdom of Muhammad. That's true. That's true with a capital T. It's so true. Those with the eyes to see and ears to hear will recognize that. And I pray that all of these things have been enlightening to you and will assist you in your soul's journey of awakening and salvation, the salvation and purification of our hearts. Because as Muhammad said, there's nothing that's going to assist the person on the day of judgment or when they die, when they return to that which all is destined to return to, the source of all the worlds. There's nothing that's going to assist the person on that day besides a pure heart. A pure heart. That's the only thing. And truly, as Yeshua said, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. And the purity, I believe, is the section that comes, incidentally, after step 14. Yes, step 15 is on purity. So once, you can really start to see that the fasting and the removing of all that shit, literally and metaphorically, as Rumi was indicating to us here, folks, it actually starts to bring about, as Rumi said, that musk and that fragrance of virtue that begins once we're emptied of the shit. The Lord can fill it, as it said. And so just as we see that from Rumi in the Muslims, we also see this in St. John Climacus, or St. John of the Ladder, and the Ladder of Divine Ascent, from step 14 to 15. Step 15 is then the on incorruptible purity and chastity, to which the corruptible attain by toil and sweat. And so this is a very arduous process and just absolutely and transformationally important. And this is what King David is indicating to us. This is what Yeshua says, blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. This is what King David is indicating to us. Create in me a pure heart, O God. And that, even Moses is indicating to us when he says that God brought you out of Egypt, out of the iron crucible. And that, and even in chapter 8, chapter 10, chapter 12 of the book of Devarim, Deuteronomy, Moses says that God, he brought you on, he brought you through the wilderness, and he purposefully, we've got to read it so you can understand with me and we can both understand. So the Torah, Deuteronomy chapter 8, Deuteronomy chapter 7, chapter 8. Okay, here we go. Chapter 8, verse 2. You shall remember the entire road on which Hashem your God led you these 40 years in the wilderness, to afflict you and to test you, to know what is in your heart. That's really a remarkable sentence. It's a remarkable spiritual teaching. You shall remember, it's a command, you shall remember being in the wilderness and being tested by God, who afflicted you and tested you in order to discern the quality of your heart, to reveal what is inside of you. The tests of life, they reveal, like going through a crucible, it reveals the impurities and brings them out. And truly, as King Solomon said, gold. Oh, I remember. No, I need to remember it. I need to remember it in Hebrew, but a crucible for gold and a furnace for silver, and God tests the heart. So he says there, verse 3, he afflicted you and let you hunger, and then he fed you with manna. And then your garment did not wear out upon you, and your feet did not swell. And so when it says he afflicted you and let you hunger, and then he fed you, it was in God's power to feed you from the beginning. So why did he let you hunger? Specifically, that fasting, you hunger, and then you're seeing the provision of God. On a side note, we also see here as remez, but it's to reveal what is within you. And when you fast, people get very edgy. They get very edgy and angry, or very desirous, or like, I need food, or I'm upset, and it reveals these qualities within you. And this is truly what we are remembering in our spiritual path of the whole 40 years in the wilderness. We were tested and afflicted, also provided for. Why? In order to reveal the quality of our heart. May God purify our heart, illuminate our heart with the wisdom and truth of who he eternally, most imminently and imminently is. Shalom Aleichem. Thank you for your attention on this matter. With the help of God, we need more help on this planet. May God bring peace upon this earth. Shalom.